And now, a message from our sponsor, CyberReason. If you're a defender fighting to protect your organization from cyber attackers, you must be successful ending attacks every single time. They only need to be successful once. CyberReason reverses the attacker's advantage. Their future-ready attack platform gives defenders the wisdom to uncover, understand, and piece together multiple threats, and the precision focus to end cyber attacks instantly. Learn more at cyberreason.com. Did DarkSide really see the light and shut down with a sincere promise of reform and restitution, or is the gang just rebranding? Researchers look at DarkSide ransomware and find complexity and sophistication. Israel says airstrikes in Gaza were intended to take out Hamas cyber ops facilities. Poor practices seem to have exposed data of millions of Android app users. Phishing from call centers and cloud services. David Dufour from Webroot looks at hacker psychology. Our guest is Rob Price from Snow Software on Shadow IT. And who dunnit to SolarWinds? Not the intern. From the CyberWire studios at Data Tribe, I'm Dave Bittner with your CyberWire summary for Thursday, May 20th, 2021. There had been a disturbance in the ransomware underworld that began last week with claims by DarkSide that its infrastructure and funds had been seized or otherwise disrupted. The gang promised to issue decryptors to all of its victims and to meet its financial obligations to its affiliates by May 23rd. Some other gangs also appear to have pulled in their horns, but it was unclear exactly what had happened to DarkSide. The gang's statements prompted speculation last Thursday that it had been taken offline by U.S. law enforcement action, but the Washington Post reported yesterday 4 U.S. officials have quietly denied that any U.S. military, law enforcement, or other agency did anything of the kind. Various DarkSide affiliates have been complaining that the ransomware-as-a-service gang stiffed them of shares of ransom it owed them, which makes it appear likely that DarkSide simply absconded on the plausible pretext that it was being rousted by the law. Now I hear you say it's only May 20th. Maybe they'll have ponied up by Sunday, as promised. Well, okay, but I wouldn't build too many hopes on that promise. Many observers expected the gang to rebrand and resurface, but whatever the eventual fate of DarkSide proper is, RiskIQ finds that a number of its affiliates are still going strong and, in principle at least, capable of deploying malware, so it's by no means a good time to let your guard down. As far as the temporary eclipse of other ransomware gangs, posting of stolen data to name-and-shame sites, for example, fell off significantly last week. That seems to have been a temporary pause. Citing work by Recorded Future, Reuters says that rates of ransomware activity have now returned to near-normal levels. Zazomi Networks has released its study of DarkSide's methods. The malware begins by collecting information about its targets. It systematically bypasses potential victims in Russia and some other former Soviet republics. It selects victims' files for encryption, and it's apparently choosy about those it picks. The malware uses self-encryption and dynamic API resolution to avoid detection, and it disables known backup solutions it finds in place in target networks. Its use of symmetric and asymmetric encryption is notably more sophisticated than was found in early ransomware strains, and makes it less likely that the victim will be able to break the encryption on their own. DarkSide has also thrown up some recent variants that show enhanced capabilities. Fortinet researchers found that the ransomware is now capable of detecting and compromising partitioned hard drives. The U.S. Congress continues to deliberate legislation intended to protect critical infrastructure from cyber attack. Hearings on Tuesday took testimony from senior military leaders responsible for cyber operations, the U.S. Naval Institute writes, and The Hill reports that Energy Secretary Granholm yesterday told the House Energy and Commerce Committee that she favored applying the same security standards the power grid faces to pipelines. Secretary Granholm stated, quote, "If we had the standards in place, would this particular ransomware attack have been able to happen? I'm not 100% sure. I do know that having good cyber hygiene on the private side, as well as on the public side, is a critical basic defense. And for entities that provide service to the public like that, especially critical services like energy, I think it's an important consideration for this committee, for sure." End quote. She suggested that the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission cybersecurity guidelines for the power grid might serve as a useful initial model for pipeline regulation. The Record reports that 2 Israeli airstrikes against targets in Gaza were intended to hit Hamas cyber operations centers. A strike on May 14th is said to have hit what Israeli Air Force sources call a cyber equipment storage site in the northern Gaza Strip belonging to Hamas military intelligence. The Record adds that the site was apparently also serving as a data center. The building also housed civilian media offices, NPR and others reported at the time, among them offices of the Associated Press and Al Jazeera, who say they were unaware of the Hamas presence and that media personnel narrowly escaped being killed in the strike. Yesterday's strike targeted what the Israeli Air Force described as a hideout apartment that was used by the terror operatives for offensive cyber activity against Israeli targets. Researchers at Check Point say their examination of 23 Android applications found 13 apps that expose data of more than 100 million users. The problem lies in the developer's misconfiguration of such cloud services as real-time database, notification managers, and storage. The report finds that among the more common poor practices was the embedding of push notification and cloud storage keys in the apps themselves. Palo Alto Network's Unit 42 has found that the controllers of Bazaar Loader, malware that backdoors infected Windows hosts, is now using trial subscription phishbait to direct victims to a call center that walks them through the process of installing the loader. They're calling the operation Bazaar Call. Inky describes an ongoing criminal campaign that uses phishing to induce the victims to give up their email credentials. The phishbait is a bogus RFP, and the emails originate from compromised accounts that are generally known to the recipients. They were staged from the cloud-based content sharing system Adobe Spark. Proofpoint is also seeing abuse of cloud content sharing services. In this case, the platforms affected are from Microsoft and Google. This approach, the company notes, lends an appearance of legitimacy to criminal phishing attempts. And finally, at RSA, SolarWinds CEO Ramakrishna updated what's known about the compromise of SolarWinds' Orion platform. Cyberscoop reports that, among other comments, he retracted earlier claims that the incident arose from an intern's carelessness. So the intern, it turns out, didn't do it. And now, a word from our sponsor, ExtraHop, stopping breaches with cloud-native network detection and response. Let's face it, cyber criminals have the upper hand, and the most advanced ones have already made it past your defenses. When advanced threats like SolarWinds Sunburst compromises your business, you need a strategy. Tune in to ExtraHop's session, Building a CISO Response Strategy to Advanced Threats, at the RSA Conference on May 19th, and learn real, applicable strategies to build resilience against advanced threats. Find session details and learn more about ExtraHop's presence at the 2021 RSA Conference at extrahop.com/RSAC21. That's extrahop.com/RSAC21. And we thank ExtraHop for sponsoring our show. It is probably not off base to say that the shadow cast by Shadow IT grew longer in the past year, thanks to the shift to remote work and to commingling of home networks and devices with business functions. Rob Price is Global Solutions Consultant at Snow Software, and he joins us with his thoughts on Shadow IT.
Personally, I would define Shadow IT as something that has not been adopted as a corporate standard or been ratified by, let's say, internal IT. To me, shadow IT is what occurs when an individual or a business unit seek technology capability to aid them in their day-to-day roles and improve their productivity that may not have been vetted by the core IT organization within an end-user environment, within a compute environment.
Is it fair to say that much of the time when folks resort to using shadow IT, that they have good intentions in mind, that they're just trying to get their work done?
Absolutely, that is fundamentally correct. And over the years, I've seen it adopted or used in multiple different ways, where finance organizations have put data loss prevention systems in place and tied people to their desks, and folks email home spreadsheets to their private accounts so they can work on them in their own time before sending it back prior to Monday morning. And being able to see those types of activities, shadow IT itself isn't just about new applications. It's about working practices that take data outside of the security boundaries of an organization.
How much of this comes down to communications? In other words, the IT folks taking a collaborative approach to this rather than viewing it as something that could even be adversarial.
I think this is a fundamental shift in working practices and how organizations need to interoperate. Traditionally, IT has been, let's call it, an underfunded area of business. Very seldom do we ever see IT budgets, running higher than an organization needs them to. And I think by the nature of our traditional insular, IT folks, it's easier sometimes for them to say no than it is to say yes. And we need to turn IT from what I would call a service unit within businesses into a much more positive, proactive business unit. So we should be looking at and encouraging IT to be at the forefront of advancement within the organization, not as a cost center that's a drag on budgets. And that's a really, really big shift in organizational culture, global culture. We need to turn the IT folks into the forefront, I think, of our businesses.
Really make them a business enabler.
Yeah, absolutely, and celebrate their capabilities. Not, from where I started, pulling boxes of paper out the back of a line printer, you might as well have put me in a cupboard.
Right.
And these guys really need to be, have a seat at the top table. Let's empower our CIOs. What can technology do for the business? Let's be on the front foot and take the advantage. And the more we see it in this today's day and world, it's cloud first strategy is one thing, but actually that just means somebody else's hardware. What do we really do, and how do we empower these people to be thought leaders, not fulfill services that somebody else is already requesting?
That's Rob Price from Snow Software. And now, a word from our sponsor, Verizon. Mitigate the risks and realize the benefits of digital transformation with the help of Verizon, a leader in cybersecurity managed and professional services for nearly 2 decades. From secure cloud computing solutions to advanced detection and response capabilities, Verizon helps secure data, networks, and infrastructure of many of the world's best-known organizations. Their annual Data Breach Investigations report is considered the gold standard of cybercrime research. And Verizon's leadership in network, wireless, and IoT connectivity makes it uniquely capable of protecting the ever-expanding attack surface. Let Verizon help you optimize your defenses and achieve the maximum return on your security investments. Learn more at VerizonEnterprise.com/products/security. And joining me once again is David Dufour. He's the Vice President of Engineering and Cybersecurity at Webroot. David, great to have you back.
Great to be back, David.
I know today you wanted to touch on something interesting here. It's comparing hacker psychology with vaccine-related threats. Thread that needle for me. Where do those two things cross over?
Well, I mean, hackers are expert in vaccine distribution. You probably didn't realize that. No, actually, they probably would be pretty good at it if we could get them to do the right thing, not the wrong thing.
Okay.
But seriously, around the psychology here, about a year ago, when we started really picking up steam on the coronavirus, COVID, we saw massive amounts of negatively branded warning sites saying you need to submit information here, we need to get your social security number here to protect yourself, et cetera, et cetera. Really negative push on these malicious sites that were stood up specifically around COVID because malicious actors, the hackers, they take advantage of whatever the psychological mood is. And
right.
So the interesting thing, which I'm about to reinforce is, and this is good news, David, it's everybody should feel great. They've shifted to a really positive mood now about enter your information here to get the vaccine. You know, give us your credit card and we'll put you on a vaccine list. Things like that. So what's interesting is the world went negative, so did they. As we've gone positive, they're actually becoming more positive as well.
Just so I make sure that I'm following you here, the case that you're making is that we should be grateful that the scammers have switched from as using fear as their method to get you to click, and now they're using hope as their method to click. So somehow, I suppose. So we're saying that's more than a lateral move.
Well, I mean, fundamentally, if your information is going to be stolen, wouldn't you want to feel good about it instead of bad about it?
I see. All right. Well, thank you very much, David Dufour, Vice President of Engineering and Cybersecurity. All right. Well, I'm going to give you some more rope to hang yourself here,
Okay.
David. Look, I think the message is a good one that the scammers absolutely follow whatever is in the public eye, right? So whatever the media is pushing and whatever buttons they can push on people, they do that, and that's what they're doing here.
That is exactly right. And honestly, if I was someone, I'm an engineer, so I'm not hugely interested in psychology, but if I was interested in psychology, this would be a fascinating topic because they truly shift their attack surface, and by attack surface, the way they stand up and they socialize, they shift it based on the mood because based on society's mood, people are more liable to click into something. You know, when you're worried about getting a virus, you're going to give your information to someone who's going to tell you about it. When you're excited about getting the vaccine because maybe it's going to help you, you're more liable to give your information. So they're very, very good at tracking this psychological, footprint of what people are feeling and then standing up attack surfaces that take advantage of that. That's really the point here.
Yeah, and I suppose too. I mean, they have so much real-time information coming in especially when they're doing these kind of spray and pray operations. You know, they can track which emails are working. Is hope working more than fear this week? Well, let's head in that direction.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, think of it in a real business case. Think of it as, the website marketing where you're standing up a product and you maybe have 3 or 4 mechanisms for trying to position that product, and you're tracking which one sells better. That's the same thing they're doing. They're standing up 3, 4, 5 things, seeing which ones are trending better in terms of stealing information, and then they go all in on that based on the success.
Yeah. All right. Well, David Dufour, thanks for joining us.
Hey, great being here, David.
Funding for this CyberWire podcast is made possible by RSA Conference, where the world talks security, happening this week. Through global events and year-round content, RSAC connects you to cybersecurity leaders and cutting-edge ideas for a safer, more secure future. Learn more at rsaconference.com/cyberwire21. And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. The CyberWire podcast is proudly produced in Maryland out of the startup studios of Data Tribe, where they're co-building the next generation of cybersecurity teams and technologies. Our amazing CyberWire team is Elliot Peltzman, Puru Prakash, Kelsey Bond, Tim Nodar, Joe Kerrigan, Carol Terrio, Ben Yellen, Nick Valecki, Gina Johnson, Bennett Moe, Chris Russell, John Petrick, Jennifer Iben, Rick Howard, Peter Kilpie, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow. And now a message from our sponsor, CyberReason. If you're a defender fighting to protect your organization from the dark forces of cyber attackers, it might seem attackers have the advantage. To win, they only need to be successful once. As a cyber defender, you must be successful in ending attacks every single time. CyberReason reverses the attacker's advantage. They put the power back in your hands. Their future-ready attack platform gives defenders the wisdom to uncover, understand, and piece together multiple threats, and the precision focus to end cyber attacks instantly on computers, mobile devices, servers, and the cloud. Wherever your organization's data is being threatened, CyberReason is ready to win the battle against cyber attacks, with you and for you. Join them and the world's leading companies. Together, we are the defenders. CyberReason. End cyber attacks. From endpoints to everywhere. Learn more at cyberreason.com/cyberwire. And we thank CyberReason for sponsoring our show.